I swear to you, if someone had told me a year ago that my life would implode in a single sentence, I would have laughed in their face. But that was before my wife, Vanessa, stood in our kitchen, tilted her head like she was auditioning for the role of smug villain of the year, and unleashed the words that cracked my soul in half. She didn't cry. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even blink. She smiled. A wide, triumphant, disgustingly satisfied smile. I'm leaving for a week with my ex. He got a free luxury trip to Santorini and invited me. I've already said yes. Her voice dripped with arrogance, like she was confessing to buying a new handbag, not detonating our marriage. Before I could breathe, she added, just a week of freedom and fun. She even laughed. A high, mocking laugh, the kind that punches a man's dignity right in the throat. Something inside me froze, but I stayed still. I didn't throw anything. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. My name is Ethan Parker, not some weak fool clawing at crumbs of loyalty. So I looked her dead in the eye and said calmly, go ahead. But when you return, you'll face exactly what you've earned. And I meant every syllable. Let me be clear. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I never imagined it was deteriorating into whatever swamp of betrayal Vanessa was splashing around in. We'd been together 8 years. We had routines, shared goals, the usual couple stuff. I wasn't blind. I just wasn't suspicious. That was my mistake. Assuming the person sleeping beside me wasn't sharpening knives behind my back. But here's where it gets really twisted. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. No, Vanessa didn't just stumble into this vacation. She had planned it, and she wanted me to know she'd chosen him. Chase Reynolds, her ex, a gym-obsessed airhead with the emotional depth of wet cardboard. Over me. She didn't soften the blow. She didn't apologize. She didn't show one flicker of shame. Instead, she strutted around the house that night like a runway model of betrayal. She hummed, packed outfits she hadn't worn in months, sprayed perfume I bought her, the expensive one, like she was baptizing herself for a rebirth. She even applied lipstick as if she were preparing for a celebration instead of a funeral. Do you know what's worse than betrayal? Seeing someone enjoy it. I watched her packing, and it was like watching a stranger peel the skin off the person I thought I loved. Every movement screamed, you're irrelevant. You don't matter. He's better. But here's the part that will haunt me forever. She didn't try to hide it. Vanessa wanted me to feel small. She fed off it. She savored my silence, mistaking it for weakness. But silence is not surrender. It's strategy. While she paraded around like the crowned queen of infidelity, my brain was sprinting miles ahead. Something wasn't adding up. Summers before, she hated traveling. She always complained about flights, hotels, sand in her shoes. Yet now she was ecstatic to jet off halfway across the world. Something had changed long before she spoke those words. The signs were there. I just missed them. Her late-night girls' dinners that somehow ended without any photos. Her sudden obsession with fitness, even though she used to call treadmills torture devices. The way her phone was always face down. The new password. The messages she claimed were work-related. Her refusal to let me do laundry because I mixed colors wrong. I wasn't living with a wife. I was living with a cover story. And that realization didn't come gently. It slammed into me like a freight train. The night she was packing, something inside me snapped into clarity. This wasn't a week-long escape. This was a continuation. Santorini wasn't the destination. It was the reward. The prize for months of rehearsed deceit, stolen moments, whispered conversations, and probably far more than whispered activities. I went to bed that night and lay awake while Vanessa hummed cheerfully beside me, dreaming of sunsets with another man. I stared at the ceiling, every breath turning colder, every thought sharper. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger comes later. First comes awakening, the violent awareness that someone you loved has been carving pieces out of your existence while smiling to your face. And trust me, once that awareness settles in your bones, it doesn't leave. It shapes you. It molds your thoughts into weapons you never knew you could wield. That night, I didn't feel defeated. I felt awakened. Vanessa thought she was flying off into paradise. But what she didn't realize was simple. Paradise is expensive, and someone always pays. She just didn't know yet. The bill was hers. The morning after Vanessa's grand announcement felt like waking up inside a crime scene where the victim was still breathing, unaware the killer was already gone. She floated around the house humming some stupid pop song, tossing sandals and swimsuits into her luggage like she was packing joy itself. Meanwhile, I moved through the rooms quietly, studying every detail of the world I apparently misunderstood. Her lies didn't start yesterday. They had roots, deep, tangled, poisonous. I just hadn't pulled hard enough before. As she took a shower, I walked into her closet. If betrayal leaves fingerprints, they're always on the little things. Details no cheater expects you to notice. Vanessa used to dress like she was allergic to effort. Sweatpants, messy buns, my oversized hoodies. But the clothes in her suitcase told a different story. Every item was strategic. Dresses with scandalous cuts. Skirts I'd never seen. Tops designed for attention, not comfort. Shoes that screamed, "Look at me, I'm wanted." None of it belonged to the version of her I once knew. It belonged to the woman she'd become without me noticing. That was my first punch in the gut. The second arrived innocently, a flash of her phone lighting up on the bed. She always kept it locked, tight as a vault, but this time it previewed a message. "Chase, can't wait to see you again. Same perfume, right?" Those words didn't just burn. They detonated. Again. That one single word sliced through every excuse, every doubt, every desperate hope that maybe she was confused, bored, unhappy. Anything but faithless. Again meant repetition. Again meant history. Again meant I'm the punchline to a joke I never heard. Something primal surged in me. Not rage, but clarity. I wasn't married to Vanessa. I was married to a performance, and she was starring in a production I never bought a ticket for. When she got out of the shower, her hair wrapped in a towel like some twisted bridal veil, she caught me staring at her phone. "Ethan, seriously?" she scoffed. "Privacy? Ever heard of it? No fear, no guilt." She acted like I'd violated her, not like she'd set fire to our wedding vows. "What's this about seeing him again?" I asked, my voice too calm for the grenade I was holding. She rolled her eyes. Not nervously, not defensively, but like she was bored. "Oh my God, Ethan, you're reading too much into things. Chase is just a friend. Relax. You always overreact." She didn't even try to lie convincingly. She didn't have to. In her mind, I didn't matter enough to deserve a believable lie. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Vanessa wasn't sorry. She wasn't conflicted. She was proud. She packed her betrayal the way some people pack sunscreen, casually like it was essential. Later that afternoon, she left the house to pick up a few things for the trip. She thought I'd sit there licking my wounds. Instead, I grabbed my keys and followed her. I'm not proud of it, but betrayal turns a man into a scientist. Suddenly you need evidence, proof, DNA-level confirmation that you weren't insane. She drove to a gym across town, Chase's gym. I watched her walk inside, her face brightening like a bulb switched on. That was the smile I hadn't seen in months. Not for me, not for us, but for him. She didn't know I saw her, but I did. I saw her lean into him with a familiarity that belonged to history, not coincidence. He lifted her like she weighed nothing, and she laughed. That same cruel little laugh she gave me in the kitchen. And just like that, the truth wasn't a suspicion. It was a fact. A carved-in stone, punch-you-in-the-ribs reality. My wife wasn't preparing for a trip. She was rehearsing a life without me. Standing in that parking lot, watching them through the tinted window, I understood something people rarely admit. Betrayal isn't discovered. It's witnessed. And once you witness it, you don't go back. By the time Vanessa came home that evening, something inside me had calcified. I wasn't the same husband who smiled at her morning jokes, who excused her late nights, who believed in the fairy tale of us. I was a man who had witnessed the truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Betrayal rewires you. It sharpens your senses, turns silence into thunder, and transforms patience into strategy. She strutted through the front door like she owned the air around her. Shopping bags dangled from her wrists, shiny proof of preparation for a trip I was never meant to survive emotionally. She glanced at me briefly, then tossed her hair like she was shedding responsibility. "You're sitting in the dark again," she sighed, flicking on the lights. "It's creepy. You need hobbies." Hobbies. The woman who dismantled my life with a sentence was now giving me lifestyle advice. I didn't react. I wasn't here for theatrics. I wanted truth, and truth isn't loud. It's precise. "So," I said, leaning back in my chair, "how long have you been seeing Chase?" Her body froze. Not in fear, not in guilt, but in irritation, like I'd interrupted her favorite show. "Ethan, seriously?" She scoffed. "We're doing this again? You're obsessed. Chase is a friend. You need to stop acting like some jealous teenager." A jealous teenager. She spoke with the confidence of someone who believed she'd covered her tracks. Someone who mistook my calm for confusion. But confusion had left me a long time ago. I reached into my pocket and slid my phone onto the table, screen facing up. A single photo, her in Chase's arms at the gym, glowed like a spotlight on her deception. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Not regret, not fear, annoyance. "Wow," she muttered. "You followed me? That's pathetic." "That's not an answer," I replied quietly. She crossed her arms, leaned against the counter, and smirked, an expression only a truly heartless person can master. "Fine," she snapped. "Since you clearly can't handle reality, yes, Chase and I have been spending time together. What do you expect? He actually listens. He actually notices me. He doesn't act like a ghost in his own house." There it was, the first blade straight into my chest. She didn't explain. She didn't apologize. She blamed me for her betrayal. "That's the difference," she continued, voice dripping venom. "Chase knows how to make a woman feel wanted. You just exist." My pulse hammered in my ears. Her words weren't arguments, they were executions. "So this trip," I asked, "was it about freedom? Or about replacing me?" She laughed, loud, sharp, cruel. "Replacing you? Ethan, please. There's nothing to replace. You're not being swapped out. You're being upgraded." Graded. In that moment, I understood something fundamental. Vanessa didn't stumble into betrayal. She chose it. With intention. With pride. With contempt. "You could have talked to me," I said. "You could have told me you were unhappy." She shrugged. "Talking is boring. Chase made things exciting." Exciting. So, to her, our marriage was a dull subscription she forgot to cancel. I stood up slowly, measured, controlled. I wasn't going to yell. Yelling gives power. Silence gives judgment. "Enjoy your trip," I said. "Just remember, when you come back, this house won't be the same." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. You're not capable of doing anything drastic. You're predictable." Predictable. She believed she already won. She believed consequences were myths for other people. But betrayal is like gravity, it always comes back down. As she walked away, satisfied with her performance, she said one more thing, the final nail in whatever was left of us. "You'll thank me someday. You were never enough for someone like me." No remorse. No hesitation. Just blades disguised as words. And right then I understood. You don't lose people like Vanessa. You escape them. When she went upstairs that night, humming like betrayal was a lullaby, I stayed in the kitchen alone. The refrigerator hummed, the clock ticked, the house breathed. Everything felt normal, but nothing was. It was like standing inside a burning building before anyone else smelled the smoke. My heart wasn't beating. It was reacting, like it needed to relearn every emotion from scratch. People think the worst part of infidelity is the moment you find out. They're wrong. The worst part is the avalanche that follows, the emotional aftershocks that arrive in waves. You don't just hurt once. You hurt in cycles. First comes disbelief, a desperate, bargaining instinct where your brain tries to edit reality. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe she's confused. Maybe it's not what it looks like. Then comes the punch, the realization that it is exactly what it looks like, and worse. The truth doesn't stab, crushes. It sits on your chest and waits for you to stop pretending you can breathe. I walked into the living room that night, sat on the couch, and stared at the empty space beside me. The space where Vanessa used to sit. We used to binge-watch shows there, complain about neighbors, argue about nothing. Now it felt like a tombstone, a memorial of my stupidity. I didn't cry. Men don't break like that. We break differently, quietly, internally, piece by piece, until everything familiar becomes hostile. My mind replayed every conversation we'd ever had, scanning for signs I missed. The late nights, the secrecy, the sudden fitness obsession. The spark in her eyes I thought was happiness. No, that was anticipation. She wasn't falling out of love with me. She was warming up for someone else. That realization killed something fundamental in me. Not love, not trust, but the foundation that holds both. When a woman chooses another man, she doesn't just leave your bed. She leaves your identity. You start questioning everything: your worth, your masculinity, your relevance. Was I boring? Was I blind? Was I replaceable? It took hours for the truth to settle. No, she was the problem. Vanessa wasn't loyal. Not to me, not to anyone, not even to herself. She chased novelty like a drug. She treated attention like currency. Men like me weren't partners to her. We were placeholders until the next thrill arrived. And Chase? He wasn't special. He was just new. Around midnight, I walked upstairs. She was asleep already, sprawled across the bed like she owned gravity. Her perfume lingered in the air. Not romantic, not nostalgic, just nauseating. It smelled like someone else's approval. For the first time in 8 years, I looked at her and felt nothing that resembled love. No tenderness, no longing, not even hatred. Hatred requires investment. What I felt was detachment, like I was observing a stranger who broke into my life and rearranged my future without permission. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully, the kind of sleep only people without conscience enjoy. I wondered how many nights she'd dreamed about Chase while lying inches from me, how many lies she'd told while smiling into my face, how many times she chose silence instead of honesty. Every thought was a blade, but something strange happened. The pain stopped hurting. It hardened. A man reaches a threshold, a point where heartbreak transforms into resolve. That night I crossed it. I wasn't the abandoned husband anymore. I wasn't the victim. Vanessa thought she destroyed me, but she only removed my blindfold. And once a man sees clearly, he doesn't break. He builds a plan. As I closed my eyes, one truth crystallized inside me. Vanessa wasn't taking a vacation. She was walking into a consequence. And I was done waiting for her to understand that. The morning she left felt surreal. Not dramatic, not explosive, just eerily calm, like the world was holding its breath. Vanessa wheeled her suitcase across the floor, humming the same careless tune she'd rehearsed the night before, her smile bright enough to blind anyone too naive to look deeper. She didn't kiss me goodbye. She didn't hug me. She didn't even fake respect. She paused at the doorway, turned slightly, and smirked. "Try not to miss me too much," she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "And don't burn the house down." Then she walked out, like a queen exiting a kingdom she never intended to keep. The door clicked shut, and I stood there in silence, not broken, not devastated, but sharpened. Something had shifted inside me. I wasn't the version of myself she expected to leave behind, the passive, predictable man she believed she'd outgrown. No. That man died the second she packed deceit into her luggage. This new version of me didn't chase explanations. He didn't beg to be chosen. He didn't look for closure. He looked for leverage. And betrayal gave it to me willingly. The first thing I did was walk into the bedroom. The scent of her perfume still lingered like a toxic fog. I opened her nightstand drawer, not out of curiosity, but out of purpose. Cheaters always leave breadcrumbs. They think they're clever because they hide the big things, forgetting the small ones tell the entire story. There, under a pile of receipts and makeup, was a spare phone, her secret device. The irony was insulting. She guarded her main phone like it held nuclear codes. But she got lazy with the backup. I turned it on. No password. Not because she trusted me, because she underestimated me. Inside was everything she never thought I'd see. Messages from Chase, voice notes, photos that blurred the line between emotional betrayal and physical involvement. Their conversations weren't romantic, they were strategic. She mocked me. She laughed about how predictable I was, how I still thought marriage required loyalty, how she deserved someone better suited for a woman like her. A woman like her. That phrase stuck in my chest like a nail. Vanessa didn't see herself as a partner. She saw herself as a prize that needed constant applause. I wasn't a husband. I was the applause machine she believed had run out of batteries. But what really flipped the switch wasn't their insults. It was the plan they discussed. She wasn't just going on a trip. She was testing a replacement. Chase wasn't a fling. He was an audition. That was the moment I stopped feeling pain and started feeling purpose. Betrayal destroys weak men. It forges dangerous ones. Vanessa thought she had torn me down, but she'd done something far more foolish. She'd given me motive. And motive is the birthplace of consequences. I spent the next hours like a man possessed. I gathered documents, passwords, financial statements, the architecture of our life she assumed she controlled. Vanessa never noticed the silent roles I played. The organizer, the planner, the one who handled details she couldn't be bothered with. She saw me as passive. But passive men are usually the ones holding the map. By the afternoon, the groundwork was set. Not revenge, consequences. Revenge is emotional. Consequences are structural. One collapses with anger. The other stands with logic. She left believing she was entering paradise. What she didn't realize was that paradise looks a lot like a cliff when seen from the right angle. As I sat on the couch that night, her spare phone beside me, my decision became clear. I wasn't going to confront her again. I was going to outgrow her existence and remove her from mine so completely that her name would sound like a rumor. Vanessa thought she was escaping a boring husband. But she was walking away from the last man who ever tolerated her. And once she returned, she would learn. Not all consequences announce themselves. Some wait. Some prepare. Some smile. A week can feel like a blink or a century, depending on what you're waiting for. While Vanessa sipped cocktails and posed for photos on rooftops in Santorini, I wasn't pacing the house or drowning in self-pity. I was dismantling the illusion she believed was unbreakable. Every day she was gone, a new layer of truth peeled back. Not just about her, but about us, about me, and about the twisted architecture of our marriage. I always thought betrayal was a single moment. I was wrong. It's a structure, a house built brick by brick, lie by lie, smirk by smirk, until one day the light finally hits it, and you see it for the grotesque castle it is. The first crack came when her best friend, Jenna, texted me. Jenna was the type who thrived on drama, but had a moral compass that spun violently whenever betrayal entered the room. "Are you okay?" she wrote. "People only ask that question when they already know the answer." I replied, "I know about her and Chase." Jenna's response arrived instantly, as if her guilt had been waiting for me to open the door. I tried to tell her not to do this. She thinks she deserves more. Deserves more. That phrase again, the anthem of narcissists. Jenna didn't elaborate, but she didn't need to. Silence can scream louder than confession. If Vanessa's best friend wasn't defending her, that meant my wife hadn't slipped. She'd leapt, headfirst, into self-inflicted chaos. The second crack came from our bank accounts. Vanessa had transferred money to a private card months ago. Not spare cash. Not shopping funds. Preparations. The betrayal wasn't impulsive, it was an investment. That hit me harder than the texts, harder than the gym scene. Emotion is messy, but planning is calculated. Vanessa didn't fall into this affair. She built a runway for it. By day 3, the third crack appeared, this one personal. My phone lit up with photos from mutual friends. Vanessa wasn't hiding the trip. She was flaunting it. Her arm wrapped around Chase, her head on his shoulder, her smile not coy, but victorious. She wasn't ashamed of burning our marriage. She was posing with the match. Each image felt like a dare. But the final crack, the one that shifted everything, came from Chase himself. He messaged me. The arrogance of it was nauseating. Chase, man, let her go. She deserves excitement. You're holding her back. There it was, the manifesto of fools. The belief that stealing something broken makes it valuable. He thought he was winning a prize. He didn't understand he was inheriting a curse. I stared at the message, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't hurt. I laughed. Not out of insanity, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Vanessa wasn't a mystery anymore. She wasn't complicated, misunderstood, or trapped. She was exactly who she wanted to be, a woman who mistook novelty for meaning and applause for love. Once you understand someone's nature, they lose their power. That was the unraveling, not of my marriage, of her spell. She thought she was outgrowing me, evolving beyond the man who shared her life. But the truth was simpler. She was running from the mirror of her own inadequacy. Chase didn't replace me. He rescued her from accountability. The moment that realization settled, everything became easy. My pain wasn't a wound anymore. It was fuel, and fuel burns clean. On day 7, when her flight was scheduled to land, I stood in the hallway, calm, ready. Not eager, not nervous, resolved. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't hitch. I wasn't waiting for her. I was waiting for the version of her that believed she still had a place here. She left with arrogance. She would return to consequences. I didn't know exactly how the next chapter would unfold, only that I would be the author. The day Vanessa returned felt like the world was holding a smirk. I finally understood. The sun was too bright, the neighborhood too quiet, the birds too cheerful. As if reality itself was mocking the storm she was walking into. I heard her rolling suitcase before I saw her. That confident rhythm, that click-click of wheels against concrete, wasn't the sound of someone coming home. It was the sound of someone convinced they still belonged here. The front door opened without hesitation. She didn't knock. She didn't pause. She entered like a victorious soldier returning from conquest. Sunglasses perched on her head, tan lines marking her skin, her smile rehearsed and poisonous. "Well," she said, tossing her bag onto the floor. "Miss me? Miss her?" I hadn't missed Vanessa for a second. I'd missed the woman I thought she was. But that woman had died long before Santorini. All that remained was a performance wrapped in skin. She looked around, expecting everything to be exactly as she left it. Same house, same husband, same stability waiting loyally at her feet. But nothing was the same. The atmosphere was different, heavier, sharper, the kind of quiet that feels like a blade, silent, but undeniable. "What's with the mood?" she asked, annoyance already surfacing. "You're acting like I committed a crime." I didn't answer. I let silence be the mirror she never dared to face. She rolled her eyes, kicking her heels off as though the floor should thank her for the privilege. "You're unbelievable. I go away for 1 week, and you're sulking like some abandoned puppy." The irony threatened to make me laugh. Puppy might beg for affection. I wasn't begging anymore. "Did you have fun?" I asked finally, my tone so calm it made her blink. She smirked. "Obviously. Chase knows how to enjoy life. You should try it sometime." She waited for my reaction. She wanted anger, jealousy, screaming, anything that fed her ego. Narcissists don't care about the argument, only the attention inside it. But I didn't give her attention. I gave her truth. "I know," I said. Her smirk faltered. "What?" she asked. "I know everything," I repeated. "The phone, the messages, the transfers, the gym, the trip, the plans." Her confidence cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but enough. She straightened, her voice suddenly sharp. "You went through my stuff?"
No, Ihre.
"I went through the reality you tried to hide." For the first time, Vanessa hesitated. Betrayers aren't afraid of lies, they're afraid of exposure. "You're being dramatic," she snapped. "You're twisting things. Chase and I." "Don't insult me," I cut in. My voice wasn't raised, but it landed like a punch. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Her nostrils flared. Vanessa wasn't ashamed. She was inconvenienced. She hated that her game board was visible now, that the pieces she'd moved so confidently were suddenly irrelevant. You think you're better than me? She hissed. No, I said calmly. I think I'm finally done pretending you were ever good for me. Something inside her shattered. Not remorse, not guilt. Control. Vanessa wasn't losing love. She was losing power. And for people like her, that's worse than death. She stepped closer, narrowing her eyes. You'll regret this. I smiled genuinely for the first time in months. I already regretted staying, I said. This is liberation. For a moment, she didn't speak. Her expression twisted, cycling through confusion, anger, disbelief, like a machine short-circuiting. Then, in a voice stripped of charm, she spat. You can't replace me. That sentence revealed everything. She never loved me. She loved being irreplaceable. I didn't flinch. Watch me. In that instant, Vanessa finally understood what she'd returned to. Not a broken husband. A man who had stopped needing her. A man she could no longer manipulate. A man she could no longer hurt. A man she underestimated one time too many. And as her face contorted in disbelief, one truth echoed between us. Her affair wasn't the end of my life. It was the end of her relevance in it. Vanessa stood frozen in the middle of the living room. Eyes narrowed, jaw clenched, her ego finally colliding with reality. For the first time since this nightmare began, she wasn't performing. She wasn't smirking. She wasn't superior. She was scared. Not scared of losing me. She never cared about that. She was terrified of losing control. People like Vanessa don't fear consequences. They fear irrelevance. They fear being forgotten. They fear becoming ordinary. And I was about to make her the most ordinary chapter of my life. You think you can just throw this away? She snapped, voice cracking like cheap glass. After everything I've done for you? I laughed. Not bitterly, not angrily, but with clarity. Done for me? I asked. You didn't do things for me. You did them so you could feel superior. Everything was transactional. Everything was leverage. You never loved me. You loved the idea of being worshipped. Her face twisted. Narcissists hate mirrors more than bullets. She stormed toward me, finger pointed like a weapon. You're delusional. I gave you the best years of my life. You should be grateful. Grateful. There it was, the anthem of the unfaithful. I let her words hang in the air before responding softly. Gratitude is something you earn, not something you demand. And loyalty isn't a donation. It's a choice. You chose Chase. Now live with that choice. She blinked rapidly, as if trying to reboot her reality. You can't just replace me, she whispered. No, I said, stepping closer, voice calm, steady, final. I can't replace you because replacements are upgrades. I'm eliminating you. Her breath hitched. That landed exactly where it needed to. Vanessa lunged for her suitcase. Fine. I'll leave. But you'll beg me to come back.
No, Ihre.
Begging ended when respect left. I walked past her and opened the front door. The gesture wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. A removal. An eviction. A closure. Vanessa stared, furious, offended, stunned. The woman who strutted out like a queen now looked like someone forced to step off a throne she never deserved. You'll regret this, she repeated, voice trembling now. Regret, I said, is for people who lose something valuable. I'm losing a parasite. Her mouth opened, but no comeback came. You could almost hear the crash of her collapsing narrative. The story she'd built where she was the heroine and I was the placeholder. She grabbed her suitcase and stormed out, heels clacking like a defeated drumbeat.
No quis. No tears. No epalegi.
Just absence. And for the first time in months, the house didn't feel empty. Felt mine. In the days that followed, something strange happened. I didn't spiral. I didn't crumble. I didn't replay every moment hunting for meaning. I lived. I slept. I breathed, and each breath was lighter than the last. Betrayal hadn't broken me. It had freed me. I learned something no one teaches you. Love doesn't blind you. Hope does. Hope makes you ignore red flags. Hope convinces you that temporary attention is affection. Hope lets you excuse disrespect because you're terrified of starting over. But once hope dies, clarity is born. And clarity is a gift. Vanessa wasn't a tragedy. She was a lesson. One carved in ego, lies, and cheap perfume. She taught me that loyalty without reciprocation isn't devotion. It's self-destruction. And I had now chosen creation instead. Conclusion. If you ever find yourself in my shoes, listen carefully. Don't chase explanations. Don't fight for someone who treats you like a spare part. Don't cling to a future built on someone else's boredom. When someone shows you their disrespect, don't negotiate. Exit. Not violently, not emotionally, strategically. Because the moment you walk away from a person who thought they were irreplaceable, you become something far more powerful than they ever imagined. Unreachable. Vanessa thought she upgraded her life. But the truth is simple.
I upgraded mine.
And she'll spend the rest of her existence realizing she didn't lose a husband. She lost the last person who ever tolerated her.